There's a new day dawning, the time is at hand, where the glory of the Lord will be revealed to every man. Open the door, open the door, open the door, and let the King of Glory in. Open the door, open the door, open the door, and let the King of Glory in.
Oh, let the King of Glory in. Open up the door starts right now. So fling wide, you heavenly gates, and prepare the way of the risen Lord. The Apostle John was on the island of Patmos. He was in prison for the testimony of Jesus Christ, and he heard a sound behind him. He said, "Behold, I looked. There was a door standing open in heaven. And I heard a voice which was like a trumpet speaking with me, saying, 'Come up here, and I will show you the things that must take place.'" That's what we need, my friends. We need a heavenly perspective of the things that are going on in the world around us, the things that the Word of God foretold us would come to pass, those things which must take place, those things which are taking place even now. That is what this show is all about, discussing the issues of the day and discerning the times in which we live from a biblical perspective and worldview. Good afternoon, everybody. Andy White here, and welcome to a brand new edition of Open Up the Doors. What you are about to hear is the fusion of heart, mind, and soul. And I am also streaming live on Facebook Live at off the Open Up the Doors Facebook page at www.facebook.com/FaithFM91.7. That's facebook.com/FaithFM91.7. If you would like to join in and see what's happening over there on Facebook Live, see the voice behind the radio microphone, and listen. Let us know where you're watching from. Let us know where you're tuned in from. Get a conversation going over there on Facebook. I'll try and glance at the comments every so often. If you have any questions you'd like to shoot me, that's on topic. I'll try and pick up your questions if I can. One more thing before I move on is if you'd like, you can also email me at ajwhite777@icloud.com. That's ajwhite777@icloud.com. And for those of you who are on Facebook, please share this. I'd appreciate it so much if you would just invite people to the broadcast, let them know what's happening, and we'll increase the listening audience. I've got a lot on my plate today, so I'm going to get to it right now, because it seems like there's a brand new rock star hitting planet Earth that's just turning heads. Oh, this new rock star, he's a very handsome young man, and he's filthy rich too, and it seems like he's turning everybody's heads. And who am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about this Saudi crown prince who's making a big splash on the scene, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. And he's been on his 3-week American tour, which has been called, in fact, I just noticed this morning, as a matter of fact, I did not know this before I did the broadcast, when I was preparing this broadcast, I did not know this, but Mohammed bin Salman is actually on the cover of Time magazine right now. And it's funny because I was going to open up the show by saying this guy is on a charm offensive, and lo and behold, they're on Time magazine, the charm offensive of Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince of Saudi Arabia. And the article there, the title of the article there is, "The Saudi Crown Prince Thinks He Can Transform the Middle East. Should we believe him?" Well, the short answer is no. That's my short answer. I'll get into that as the show progresses. But this guy, Mohammed bin Salman, is definitely turning heads. I mean, he started off his 3-week tour by meeting with President Trump, and out of that meeting, he got several billions of dollars in arms sales going over to Saudi Arabia. And 2 days after the meeting, President Trump announced that we were going to be approving over $1 billion worth of arms sales to Saudi Arabia. And there's more. I'm going to build on this throughout the broadcast. But after he met with President Trump, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, he went over to New York. He flew from Washington to New York to meet with, and this is where has really started to turn. He met with leading Jewish rabbis and Catholics. He met with representatives of the Catholic Church. He met with leading rabbis in New York. And from there, excuse me, from there, he flew out to Hollywood. In fact, he's out in L.A. right now. Well, he was there earlier in the week anyway, and he was meeting with the Hollywood moguls. He had a dinner with Rupert Murdoch, Rupert Murdoch used to be the owner of Fox Cable News. I think he no longer actually owns it. I think he handed it over to his sons, but Rupert Murdoch is still a very powerful media person just by even in his quote-unquote retirement, just by way of who he is and his influence. And there's a lot to that meeting that I'll touch upon, time permitting. But so here we got this Saudi crown prince meeting with Trump, meeting with rabbis, meeting with Rupert Murdoch, meeting with Hollywood moguls. I mean, I heard he met with all kinds of stars and superstars. And he's taken his entourage all over the place. In fact, I think it was in Hollywood. He rented out the entire hotel. I forgot what hotel it was, but he just rented out the whole thing for several days. And let me scroll down through. I got so much stuff here about what this guy is up to, and that's what I want to talk a little bit about today. What are the Saudis up to? What exactly is Mohammed bin Salman actually up to? Because there's something going on here. I mean, like I said, this guy's turning heads. He met with, as I said, he met with these religious leaders in New York, which was something big, because the Saudis are very intolerant. They're an Islamic republic. They've been exporting Wahhabism, Islam, throughout the world for decades and decades. Something I'm going to touch upon in the next block. But what caused him to meet with these religious leaders? Well, the bottom line is this: Mohammed bin Salman is trying to revolutionize Saudi Arabia. He wants to bring Saudi Arabia into the future. And one of the statements he made this past week, and I'm trying not to rush ahead of myself because I've got so much here and I'm kind of excited about a lot of things that are going on. But one of the things that really turned heads was, quote, Mohammed bin Salman said this week, "I believe the Iranian supreme leader makes Hitler look good." Hitler didn't do what the supreme leader is trying to do. Hitler tried to conquer Europe. The supreme leader is trying to conquer the world. Now, in a lot of ways, Mohammed bin Salman is actually quite right about that statement. He is quite right. And he's, like I said, these are the kind of statements that are just turning heads. And he's saying he wants to bring Saudi Arabia into more of a moderate Islam. He wants to open up the world he wants to open Saudi Arabia up to the world. He wants the world to be open up to Saudi Arabia and be free to have all religions. So it goes back to the question that Time asked: can we trust him? Well, personally, I say no, but he's definitely on a charm offensive. And a statement came out of, which was almost laughable. A statement came out of the Saudi Arabian embassy in reference to the meeting he had with the religious leaders, the rabbis and the Catholic representatives. And this quote out of the Saudi embassy, I just kind of stared at it when I read it, honestly. But they said here, the official statement from the embassy said, the meeting between Mohammed bin Salman and the Jewish rabbis emphasized the common bond among all people, particularly people of faith, which stresses the importance of tolerance, coexistence, and working together for a better future for all of humanity. Now, coming from the Saudis, that's an extraordinary statement, because Saudi Arabia is one of the least tolerant nations in all the world. They can't coexist with any other religion. Other religions are not even allowed in Saudi Arabia. There are no churches in Saudi Arabia. There are no synagogues in Saudi Arabia. So this talk about political rhetoric. But what caught my attention in that quote was working together for a better future for all of humanity. Now, you got to understand, my thoughts jump to, are they talking about Neom? Could Neom be what they're talking about? No, you might say, what's Neom? And I don't want to jump ahead too much in my thoughts. Like I said, I am kind of racing today with some of my stuff here because there's so much to get to. But I don't want to jump the gun. And I'm going to talk about Neom a little bit later in this broadcast. But Neom, right off the cuff, it's a mega city that the Saudis are planning on building, that they're looking for investments and money for, and they want to make it a ultra modern, the most modern mega city in all the world. So what are the Saudis up to, really? That's really what I think a lot of people are asking, what a lot of people are wondering. What are the Saudis up to? And specifically the Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman. You know, I saw a picture of him the other day. Well, you can't help but see pictures of him all over the place now. And something hit me. He's a very handsome guy. He's young. He's only 32 years old. When he became Crown Prince a couple of years ago, when his father appointed him Crown Prince, he was only 29. And something hit me the other day, and I looked at him and I said, "Man, this guy has got striking features. He's a very handsome man." But I saw something. I saw something that sent chills down my spine. And I'm being honest. I'm really being honest. I saw a very sinister, calculated, I don't want to say evil. That's probably maybe too strong of a term. But I saw someone who was very sly, someone who's very calculated. And I go back to that statement put out by the embassy, that the meeting emphasized the common bond among all people, particularly people of faith, which stresses the importance of tolerance, coexistence, and working together for the better of humanity. Really? As I said, Saudi Arabia has been hands down one of the most oppressive and repressive Islamic nations in the world. There is no religious freedom within its borders. It's one of the most intolerant states in the world. So really, are they changing? Is it possible for them to change? Well, they are making some attempts. You know, it was announced not too long ago, and everyone clapped and kind of looked at it kind of incredulously. But, you know, there was a big announcement not too long ago that the Saudis are finally going to allow women to drive. Next summer, for the first time in Saudi Arabian history, women will be allowed to drive on the roads. Now, I don't know. That might be one they might want to rethink. I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding. Oh, boy. I just lost my female audience. I was just joking, folks. But anyway, yeah, they are trying to make these changes. And one of the reasons, joking aside, one of the reasons that the Crown Prince went over to Hollywood was because he's literally trying to lure the studios and Hollywood over to Saudi Arabia to start filming and to start building up a film industry there, which is, again, cinemas may soon be opened for the first time in decades. So he's trying to allure, seduce, if you want to use those words, the Hollywood moguls to come and invest in these plans, because, like I said, Saudi Arabia plans to build this high-tech $500 billion, what they're calling an economic zone on its northwest coast. Again, I'm going to get into that later. But they want to build a mega city called Neom. And there are some changes, a lot of changes going on in Saudi Arabia. It's shaking up the nation, and people are wondering what's going on with this. And at the center of these changes, at the very center of all these changes, is Mohammed bin Salman. And quite honestly, this guy has almost come out of nowhere. So I want to give you, just for starters, maybe you haven't been keeping up with the news. Maybe some of these things are just things that have flown under your radar. Because who is Mohammed bin Salman? Because few people outside Saudi Arabia had ever heard of him before. I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest version, the condensed version of how this guy came to power. Reader's Digest. Wow. Hey, does Reader's Digest even still exist anymore? I don't know. I remember my wife years ago used to get Reader's Digest. And when we say the Reader's Digest version, it's because they would condense stories down and make them like, you know, something. They would take a long story and condense it down so you could read it in one sitting. Anyway, I digress. Because it popped in my head, the Reader's Digest version. I don't even know if they exist anymore. Maybe somebody can tell me there. If anybody can answer that question there on Facebook Live, I'm kind of curious. Anyway, getting back to the Crown Prince. before his father became king in 2015, nobody ever really heard of him except for the people in Saudi Arabia. And yet now, at 32 years old, he's become the most influential figure in Saudi Arabia. He's even eclipsing his father, the king, because most people are expecting his father to either just hand the throne to his son Muhammad, or possibly die very soon. He's in his early 80s. But what happened is, in January 2015, a few people might remember King Abdullah. I remember for the longest time, me just growing up, I knew King Abdullah, from Saudi Arabia. But in January of 2015, King Abdullah, he died, and Prince Salman bin Abdul took the throne. And he was 79 then, so he's about 82, 83 now. The current king, as I said, King Salman, is, he's old, and the people are saying he's fading away. So he named his favorite son, Muhammad, as his successor, which surprised some people because bin Salman actually has two older half-brothers. So again, the king is thinking he wanted somebody young who would take the throne and be on the throne for a very, very long time. So again, he's appointed by his father to this position as a young man. And here's the thing, and this is why I said, when I looked at him the other day, I saw something behind that handsome young look. That I said he was sly, he was calculated, because he's packaging himself, and the media is packaging him as a modern voice, which I guess he is to some degree, of course, because he's a millennial, but as the new face of Saudi Arabia. But as soon as Mohammed bin Salman, his father, had given him this power, the first thing he did was he began to consolidate his power. And last September, a crackdown was launched against anyone that he perceived as an opponent of his policies. And from September through November of last year, you might have seen some of it in the news. It was being broadcast as a crackdown on corruption. But more than 20 influential clerics, intellectuals, were detained. Over 200, over 200 other princes, because Saudi Arabia is basically a fiefdom, really, were arrested under Mohammed bin Salman. And there was even talk that some of them were even tortured. One of the people that was arrested was the most famous of all the Saudis, probably one of the most famous. He was one of the richest men in the world. He was arrested, Prince Alois bin Talal, who used to be, I don't know if he still is, but he used to be a principal holder at Fox News, which is another connection there. Why did Mohammed bin Salman want to really meet with Rupert Murdoch? Rupert Murdoch, in a lot of ways, used to work for Prince Alois, because Prince Alois held the most stock in Fox News, something a lot of people didn't realize. But again, Prince Mohammed launched this anti-corruption drive, as it was being called. And really, most analysts believed it was really him trying to gain total control of his kingdom and purge all opposition. And this is stuff that goes on in the Middle East all the time anyway. This is stuff you could read about this really in 1 Kings and 2 Kings and 1 Chronicles and 2 Chronicles, because some things about the Middle East never change. It's when one son becomes prince, becomes king, the other brothers try and take him out, or that one rises up and kills all the other brothers. You can see that again even in the Bible. There's this thing that goes on there. You just gotta wipe out the rest of the family when you become king to secure and to consolidate your power. But Saudi Arabia has rounded up so many top officials that it's running out of space in the Ritz-Carlton. By the way, the prison they were using there in Saudi Arabia to jail these people was the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. I mean, that's kind of funny in and of itself when you think about it. But as I said, since November, more than 200 princes, ministers, and businessmen have been detained, and some were tortured. Even though it was billed as, just we want to purge corruption from our nation. No, it's this whole thing that bin Salman is doing, or has been doing, is really just a purge of his political foes. So my point in saying that is beware of what's behind that smile. Beware of what's behind his so-called moderation. The Saudi monarchy, or the kingship, I should say, has always operated on what is known as a primus inter pares, which means simply a first amongst equals. But the analysts are saying what Prince Mohammed has done in the little bit of time that he's been crown prince is he is breaking that balance of being a first amongst equals, and he is transforming Saudi Arabia, into a truly absolute monarchy. And when his father dies, the crown prince, Mohammed bin Salman, will become something Saudi Arabia hasn't seen in many, many years. A young ruler who will stay in power for decades, should he get the opportunity to. Now, I'm going to build on this, but I just wanted to lay out for a few minutes. I just wanted to lay out what's going on, give you an introduction in case you haven't heard about the Crown Prince's trip to America and who he is. But there's a lot going on here that I do want to get to, but I'm going to take a quick break right now, and I'll be back in a moment. Stick around. Darrell Evans, a mighty fortress is our God. Welcome back, everybody. You are listening to Open Up the Doors, the fusion of heart, mind, and soul here on Faith FM. And I want to just get right back into talking about what I was talking about, because I got a lot to talk about. What are the Saudis up to? I've been talking about, if you're just tuning in, I've been talking about Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia, who seems to be the newest rock star, rocking the world, and people are wondering what this guy is up to. I'm wondering what this guy is up to. One analyst, one guy said about, I'm going to call him MBS, because everybody's calling him MBS, so they don't have to keep stumbling over his name, Mohammed bin Salman. MBS. But everyone's talking about this charm offensive that he's been on, this American tour. And one analyst said, this isn't just about money. Although there are many big opportunities in his kingdom, if his reforms succeed, MBS could realign the Middle East and change the world. Well, there's a lot going on here prophetically, my friends. And this guy is saying, whoever this analyst was, there was no name given, but he says this isn't just about money. Well, I want to tell you, this is a multifaceted thing for sure, but there's at least two objectives for this arm offensive. One, they want to build up their military defenses for what they believe might be a coming war between Saudi Arabia and Iran, or possibly even Turkey, which is why when MBS came here, one of the first things he did was to meet with President Trump and secure an arms deal for another $1 billion worth of arms, and also spare parts and everything for all the through the years the Saudis have been buying American military equipment, but they want to up the game, keep everything up to par, and increase it because tensions are rising in many, many ways. So they are looking for that military and defense buildup. And number two, they are definitely, the guy said, it's not just about money, but it's mainly about money. Because now, number two, they're looking for financial investors to invest in that mega city NEOM that I mentioned a few moments ago. And I hope I have time at the end of the show to get a little bit more in about NEOM, because this is something incredible. But here's the thing with this, folks. Here's what I really want to try and bring together and knit together. There's this prophetic positioning going on right now. As I've talked about in times past, there's this convergence of the multiple signs of the times, and there's this alignment and of the alliances of the kingdom of the beast. And just as a little bit of background, because I just said a moment ago that the Saudis they're on the verge, they're very close, I shouldn't say on the verge, but they are inching closer to a possible war, and they're fearful of a possible war with Iran, and even Iran and Turkey possibly. But I want to backtrack a little bit to explain to you what I mean about this prophetic positioning. We are looking, and most end time people are looking for what's forming right now with this confederacy, with the Magog Confederacy. And I want to mention to you, there's a scripture in Ezekiel 38. Now, we know that Ezekiel 38 and 39 talk about the Magog confederacy and the invasion of Gog and Magog into the land of Israel. But there's some very interesting things there. For instance, in Ezekiel 38:13, it speaks about Sheba and Dedan and the merchants of Tarshish, and all the young lions will say to Magog, have you come to take plunder? Have you gathered your army to take booty, to carry away silver and gold, to take away livestock goods and great plunder? Now you need to understand something. Sheba and Dedan are in Saudi Arabia. They were areas in Saudi Arabia. That statement is representing the nations of the Arabian Peninsula, notably Saudi Arabia. And the inference is that Saudi Arabia, Sheba, Dedan, they're looking at the Magog Alliance and they're reproving them, and they're saying, what are you doing? What is this attack all about? As they come in to invade Israel. So we see, and we can infer from that this is very important, that Saudi Arabia is not a part of the Magog Alliance, which makes perfect sense, because the Magog Alliance, the two main Axis powers, will be Turkey and Iran, which, by the way, little aside, they just had a conference with Putin and Erdogan and Khamenei Hosseini, President Hosseini of Iran, and they just solidified an alliance together. So again, this prophetic positioning and the alliances are coming together. And we know from the scriptures that the Magog Alliance most definitely includes those people that were called in ancient times Meshach, Tubal, Goma, and Togarmah, which is modern-day Turkey. Persia, which is modern-day Iran. Ethiopia is named, which is Somalia, Sudan, and Libya is named. We know specific countries named in the Bible specifically of what the Magog Alliance consists of. Now, I don't want to get into all that right now, but I wanted to lay that there because I've been telling you, the Saudis are afraid of a coming war with Iran. Tensions have been high amongst them for many years for many different reasons. One other thing I want to touch on, because of the statements that MBS has been making about Israel having a right to their own land, about possibly making normalized relations. The Saudis do not have normalized relations with the Israelis. They don't have embassies, but the Saudis are making overtones, and they've been doing this for some time now, and it makes perfect sense from a biblical perspective when you understand what the scriptures are saying. But one of the things I want to address really quickly is I've been noticing already people jumping like we always do. Who's the Antichrist? This one's the Antichrist. That's the Antichrist. And some are already asking, could MBS be the Antichrist? Now, let me say this by way of a caveat. When it comes to eschatology, almost anything is possible. Now, I'll say that. I'll just put that out there. Almost anything is possible, but not likely. You see, Mohammed bin Salman, is he the Antichrist? Not likely, because he doesn't really fit the biblical description. Because most importantly, there are very specific things that the Bible talks about the Antichrist. And a lot of things that people seem to overlook or disregard. But there are a couple of things. One, the Antichrist is called in several places in the Old Testament, specifically Isaiah and Micah. He's called the Assyrian. Now, the Assyrian Empire was that part of up north, that encompassed eastern Turkey into modern-day Iraq and Syria. The Assyrian Empire never encompassed any of Saudi Arabia. So there's one issue there. The other thing is that in Daniel 11, the Antichrist, and mostly everyone agrees that Daniel 11 is talking about the Antichrist, and there he's called the king of the north. Again, the Assyrians were in the north. Magog is in the north. So, I could give you several reasons why bin Salman is most likely not the Antichrist. But like I said, for the sake of time, I just want to give you the main one. The Antichrist is called the king of the north. And a simple glance of the map will show you that Saudi Arabia is southeast of Israel. So just even geographically, it's not likely. The Antichrist, according to the Bible, is both a military leader and the head of the beast kingdom, which consists of that 10-nation confederation. It's clearly not, at least not now, it's not Saudi Arabia. Now, I wanted to kind of get that out there because it connects with this question. So what exactly are the Saudis up to, and especially MBS? Well, again, I'll emphasize this. One thing I can assure you that they're up to is that they're beefing up their military in preparation of a feared attack, again, by Iran and possibly Turkey, too. Again, just to reiterate, the White House this past week told Congress that it plans to approve a $1 billion arms sale to Saudi Arabia. And the package includes 6,700 U.S.-built anti-tank missiles. And the announcement came 2 days after President Trump met with bin Salman. But that's not all. I've already spoken on that. Here's something that's even more huge and kind of flew under the radar, pun intended. They've also cemented plans. The U.S. is moving its big U.S. Central Command base, which has been in Qatar for, 15, 20 years or so. I think since almost 9/11. The U.S. Central Command base has been in Qatar. It's being moved to Saudi Arabia. It was approved by Donald Trump and Prince Mohammed bin Salman when they met at the White House on March 20th. That's huge, folks. On top of that, one military analyst said that this is huge for the Middle East, and it far transcends U.S.-Saudi relationships, according to this military source. But there's more than just that. There's also news out that the Trump administration is in the process of moving and packing up and moving its Air Force base out of Incirlik, Turkey, which is something I was wondering about a long time ago, ever since that so-called coup attempt back in July of a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, when there was that coup attempt, which I believe was staged in Turkey. I was wondering about Incirlik because we have had nuclear weapons based in Incirlik Air Base. And if Erdogan ever, or the Turks ever took over that air base, those nukes would fall into Erdogan's hands. Now, some military sources have said that they have been moved since that time. But none of these things are ever confirmed because the U.S. never lets the world know where the nukes are. But either way, I'll cut to the chase here. We're moving CENTCOM to Saudi Arabia, and we're moving the Incirlik Air Base. In fact, it says right here, the Pentagon is also looking at Andra Vedita in southern Greece as a replacement for Incirlik. And I almost let that slip by me the other day when I was reading this. And you might be saying, what are you talking about? Incirlik is, not Incirlik. They're talking about moving the Incirlik base to southern Greece. Let me go back and read what it says there in Ezekiel 38. It says, 13, Sheba and Dedan, that's Saudi Arabia, and the merchants of Tarshish. Tarshish is southern Greece. Tarshish was located in southern Greece. And they say to the Magog Alliance, what are you doing? I'll paraphrase it. What are you doing? What is this invasion of yours? It's like leaping off the page to me. It's in my mind, in my thinking, this is huge. Military analysts are saying this is huge. See, these moves are interconnected because Turkish President Erdogan has become an avid supporter of the Emir of Qatar, and he's locked in. The Emir of Qatar is locked in a feud with who? The Saudi rulers. And Turkey recently established a large military base in Qatar. So my point in all of this is that the Saudi crown prince views both the Iranians and the Turks as their arch enemies, which totally lines up with the biblical scenario. And here's something that's interesting. It was 15 years ago that the main Air Force base was originally in Saudi Arabia, but after 9/11, and because after we invaded Iraq, the Saudis got mad at us and kicked us out of Saudi Arabia. But now all of a sudden they want us back 15 years later. Now 60,000 troops will be now stationed in the renewed base in Saudi Arabia, and American soldiers will now be in place to defend the Saudi kingdom should the Iranians choose to invade, or even Turkey. And there's all kinds of possibilities here, folks. You got to understand something. I'll go right to it right now. Let me look at the time before I run out of time. Because this is all connected. Because Turkey is not happy with Saudi Arabia. Okay? And in an editorial in Yeni Shafak, which is a daily Turkish newspaper, which is really a propaganda paper for Erdogan, there was this editorial that said, Mohammed bin Salman, Mr. Prince, this call is for you. You cannot protect the Kaaba with those who occupy Jerusalem. Now, this was a very long article. I can't get into it, but it's basically a rebuke from Turkey to MBS and to Saudi Arabia for even acting like they're becoming friendly to Israel. Erdogan is presenting himself as the leader of the Muslim people. Up until this time, it's always been a de facto recognition that the king of Saudi Arabia was the de facto Sunni leader of Islam. But Erdogan wants that. And Erdogan wants to be the protector, his words, of Jerusalem. And he wants to be the protector, his words, of Mecca and the Kaaba. And I'm going to read this a little bit because this was directed to Mohammed bin Salman. It's a rebuke from the Turks. The United Arab Emirates, Israel, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and the U.S. established an anti-Turkey front. Even though it seems like it's targeting Iran, the country which the new Axis is openly positioning itself as against Turkey. The Turks are paranoid to some degree. But according to them, their main goal is to stop Turkey. And this editorial writes, Dear Prince, standing against Turkey, taking an anti-Turkey attitude on behalf of the U.S. and Israel, targeting Turkey for Mohammed bin Zayed, he's the leader of the United Arab Emirates, is going to win you nothing. But it will make you lose a lot. So Turkey is threatening MBS and the Saudis. Erdogan is saying if you place Turkey and Iran on their target board, you're going to experience the greatest strategic blindness of your life. You cannot protect the Kaaba, Mecca, and Medina with those who have invaded Jerusalem. He's speaking of the Jews who have taken it hostage. Mr. Prince, you cannot protect Muslims under the protection of the Jewish lobby, Mr. Prince. Now, you got to understand, folks, that these are thinly veiled threats. And as I said a moment ago, Erdogan has for some time been positioning himself to the Muslim world as their true protector. And now he's got like some ammunition because the Saudi crown prince is making nice with Israel. So Khamenei has come against him. There was a letter today. I can't get to it. There was a letter put out by Supreme Leader Khamenei against the Saudis. And there's these editorials put out by the Turks against the Saudis. Again, the Axis powers of the Magog Alliance are coming into position. As I've been elucidating for some time now, how do you get Sunni Turkey to align with Shia Iran? Well, Putin just managed to do that. It's called the enemy of my enemy is my friend. I've been saying this for some time, folks. All the pieces on the chessboard are being moved into place. I've got to take a break. I'll be back with more after this. The fusion of heart, mind, and soul. This is Open Up the Doors with Andy White here on Faith FM, WEGB 90.7 and 93.3 in Napi, WEGQ 91.7 in Quag. I've been talking about the charm offensive today of the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and what are the Saudis up to? Which is really what a lot of people are asking. There is so much. It's so multifaceted what's going on. It's almost like peeling onion, the skin off an onion. There's so many layers. I might have to do this for a couple of weeks, honestly, because it's not only is it in the news presently, and it's obviously a societal, cultural issue, but more importantly, it's a prophetic issue that's going on right in front of us. The pages of the Bible are just, the words of the Bible are leaping off the pages for those of us who are paying attention and who know what to look for. Somebody on my Facebook Live, oh, by the way, I am on Facebook Live. I didn't mention that a moment ago, but you can join in the conversation there at facebook.com/faithfm91.7, the Open Up the Doors Facebook page. Please like my page if you've never liked it before. But someone there asked the question, Jimmy Messina, an old friend of mine, asked the question. Let me go back to it. He asked on that. He said, "Is Damascus going to fall soon?" And that's a really good question, because one of the things we've all been looking for as end time watchers is the prophecy of Isaiah 17:1, where it talks about Damascus has become a ruinous heap, and it will become uninhabitable, which is something that's never happened. Damascus is the oldest, most longest running, uninterrupted city in all of history. And the prophecy of Isaiah 17 has never come to pass yet. Will it happen soon? Well, Jimmy, I could tell you this. It's going to happen soon. It has to happen. It's going to happen sometime between now. You can say that right now. It's going to happen sometime between now and when Jesus returns. That much I can tell you. It seems like it could happen very soon because, as you know, and that's probably why you raised the question, the Russians are there building their bases. Turkey has come in supporting the Assad regime. Putin is there supporting the Assad regime. We are there ostensibly fighting ISIS. And now there's been this back and forth. One day, President Trump is saying we're going to stay in Syria. The next day, he's saying we're pulling out of Syria. There's so much going on there between what the Iranians are doing, between what the Syrians are doing. The Syrians have become a puppet, really. Bashar Assad has really, at this point in time, become nothing really more than a figurehead, a puppet of Putin. And Putin, I think, has his own designs. Of course, Putin wants the bases there. He wants the ports there. He wants to be able there to control some of the gas lines that are flowing through the Middle East. But to get back to your question, I'm running out of time. I'm not going to get to Neom today. I can see this already. I'm going to have to talk about Neom next week, but Neom is something that is big. It's really big. And that's no pun intended. When they build Neom, it's going to be 33 times the size of New York City in land area. The Egyptians have already pledged. I know I went off of answering Jimmy's question, but it's so connected. It's so connected. Damascus could fall at any moment. It's on a hair trigger. It really is. Again, there are so many things that are multifaceted with what's going on right now. It's almost, which way do you go? How do you begin to wrap your arms around this? Well, number one, you need to be in the Word of God. You really need to be reading the Word of God, studying the Word of God, trying to understand the Word. Eschatology, folks. I've said this in times past. It's unfolding before us. At the end of the book of Daniel didn't even understand the prophecies he was speaking. He said he didn't understand them. And the angel says, seal the book, Daniel. You're not going to understand it, but they will understand it in the last days. As these things unfold before us. And this is something I need to say, really, it's really important. A lot of people are stuck in their paradigms and in the things they've been taught through the years. Some things that were taught honestly but mistakenly. Some things that were taught not because it was error, but because that's where the revelation was at the time. But we can't hold on to those things because it's unfolding before us. And a lot of people are getting stuck with a lot of things, and I believe a lot of people are looking in the wrong place. And because they're looking in the wrong place because of an indoctrination, because they won't let go of something they taught because they thought it was like, you have to believe this or you're not saved, which isn't true. Folks, watch what's going on the ground in light of what the Word of God already says. And I could really go on with that so much more. But let me touch upon Neom just really briefly in a couple of minutes that I have left, because I only have like 2 minutes left. The Saudi Arabian government wants to build this mega city that's going to be $500 billion, and they're trying to get investors. It's, like I said, it's going to be 33 times the size of New York City. And the country is now starting to award contracts to local construction companies for the development of 5 palaces. The first thing they're going to build there are 5 palaces for the Saudi Arabian royalty. And they're already starting to get the contracts. It's going to be a mega city, and I shouldn't do this by way of teaser. Oh man, I'm looking at the clock. I'm running out of time. Egypt has committed more than 1,000 square kilometers of land in the southern Sinai Peninsula. This Neom is going to be built on Saudi Arabia territory on the Red Sea, as well as the Arabian, as well as land that's owned by Egypt and parts of Jordan. They've already come into agreement. This city is going to be huge. It's going to be a great, great city. And yes, Jimmy, it's going to be mind-boggling. And I'm going to have to get into this maybe a little bit more next week because I'm out of time. Oh, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. I got to go. Yes, folks, I'm going to have to get back to this next week. I'll bring you part 2 of what are the Saudis up to next week. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I can't believe where that hour went. Holy smokes, it's 4 o'clock already. God bless you, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to Open Up the Doors.